Oh, good.
I was going to ask you, how was your partner after what happened at Christmas time?
Oh, Christmas time. Oh, his mom's a bit ill. She's got
Right,
cancer, so we have to go down and spend more time with her. So
right, okay.
yeah,
Fair enough. Oh, that's good. So it's just one of
yeah.
those things, isn't it? You can't not.
It's we call them life. It sucks away everyone's energy, but it teaches us how to be strong for it. So yeah,
And that's exactly what you've got to be,
yeah.
isn't it?
That's yeah. In this day and age, in the past 2 years, I think what life taught us is to be resilient. And in return, we have to encourage and teach our children very young to be resilient as well.
I think that's what's really come out, hasn't it? Is we've sort of lost the art of resilience.
Yes, only because we had a few years that's really good and we became complacent with it and we got hit with an incident or an event that we don't know of, and that's when resilience become handy. So yeah.
Yes, yes, it is. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Oh, but anyway, but how are you going today?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Excellent. I'm great. Feeling great.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Look, what we've been doing is asking our guests about their journey into early education and care. Can you
Yep.
share with us your journey?
My journey started a bit different. So when on my 21st birthday, I became lost, not lost physically, but lost in life. So I did a lot of things to find myself, but you know what, Paula? I realized that everywhere you go to find yourself, when you look in the mirror, there you are. You're with yourself all the time. You just have to look at yourself deeply. So during that time, I decided to take up child psychology to help me find myself. And that's when I realized the importance of formative years, which is 0 to 8 years, and the ages of the brain. I didn't even know that your brain ages. So when I realized that, I thought to myself, well, you know what? If the children are missing out, we have to do something. And we can't change the world. So, how about we start doing it ourselves? So, I thought to myself, well, I'll start early childhood education, get my
Yep.
qualifications in there, because it's a good platform to encourage other educators to do the same. So, that's how it all started.
Wow, that is actually a very lovely way to start the journey. Is actually acknowledging what children need.
Yeah, that's correct. And look, it's even more meaningful because I didn't plan for that to happen. I planned to be either a doctor or a pilot or something like that. So it happened by mistake. But I think it's a blessing in disguise because, like I said, it came to a realization that, oh, I didn't know that it was important. We grew up in a culture where children are children. They don't know anything. They just play, eat, and poop and sleep. But it's more to that. So yeah,
In fact, I often think, Michael, we don't give children enough credit for how smart they really are.
yes, and you know what? With this a day and age, they're getting even smarter.
Yes.
So put it this way, they learn to swipe and scroll through the apps of the phone first before writing. What about that? They know how to turn on an iPad first before they learn to write. So we have to, it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, but what we need to think about is how can we turn that as a learning tool? You have to capitalize on the different ways they're learning nowadays. In my days, we play out in the streets, but now you've got all of this technology. Okay, some people see it as good, some people see it as bad, but how can we utilize that to enrich the children's lives?
Yes, and in fact, technology is here to stay, right? That's the way we're moving forward.
Yeah,
Is it's going to get smarter and smarter. Look, I struggle with the remote these days sometimes.
yeah, that's right.
But you can see young children that they're not going to have that issue because they're learning it from such a young age, and their skill level is amazing. And
Yes,
like
they
you
do
said,
coding.
yeah, absolutely. Look, what I think the good and the bad in it is we need to look at the good. We need to work out
Yes.
how do we use it for good. How do we get our children to use it for good?
And I agree with you, Paula. The technology is here to stay. Put it this way, looking forward, you can even turn on your TV or turn off the lights by just saying, "Hey Siri, turn the lights on." So
Yes.
you have to plan how you're going to teach the children that way, because gone were the days where you always say, "Oh, in my days," because children would not relate to that. They weren't there during that time, right? So in our services, once they reach 3 year old, we have what we call them bebop machines. I think preschool use them. It's to teach children to code. So, for example, if you want the little bee to go to Saturn, and you need to program the bee to take 3 steps forward, turn right, and then do something else, make a sound. So it's training them for logic. But back in the days, we don't have that. We
No,
learn differently. So yeah,
we have to open up a map book.
that's correct.
I
Or remember the times when you drive your car, you have that thick map and you scroll
mean,
through the CBD version and you scroll through like that.
and then
But
if there was a new estate, it wasn't in there.
yes, and you have to update it every what, 2, 3 years, because if
Yes,
they change the roads, it's not there. But now you just go on your phone and it's there. So yeah,
and it's updated.
yeah. So we have to
It's
go with the time.
absolutely, and we've got to also. That's I think you'll agree here. The resilience is also part of growing with that times for the children. Is understanding their way forward and helping them with that.
And that as well, the only issue with that I can see in society, it causes disconnection between how would we say, the more mature age people than the young ones. They have a big disconnect in the middle, only because some of these technologies or the matter people learn these days are way different back then.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I agree, and I mean it's my version of school today is very different.
very
Uh,
different.
yeah, yeah. Look, I feel very privileged to be my age and having working in technology.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
So what it's important now is we actually teach children how to socialize. You see that everywhere else. People are on their phones and they communicate that way. There's nothing wrong with that. But we, as on the older generation, we forget that for the young generation, that's the effective way they communicate. So we need to sort of adapt to how they are, because, like you said, technology is here to stay. So with the children that we teach, we give them back the basics, because the face to face, believe it or not, face to face communication is a lot harder, a lot harder than technology. How many times when you ring someone and they pick up and you get surprised, go, "Oh, I was hoping for the voicemail," and it's actually you picking it up, and it's all, and then you go like, "What do I say?" You know,
Yeah,
but
and you've got to think about it.
then think about it, because, "Oh, I just messaged you." You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So
yeah,
we teach these skills to the young. It's very important for young children to know the basic skills of socializing. So yeah,
yes, yes, yes. And also as you were saying about the messaging and the phone calls, what happens is sometimes the person who doesn't answer actually sends you a text and says, "Text
yeah,
me."
yeah. Send me a message instead. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
instead.
And
Yes.
then, because there's no emotions, very limited emotions and messages, sometimes you get the other person saying, "Oh, were you mad?" Oh no, it's just it got stuck on all caps. The message gets skewed.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah.
does. And also, there are some things better said face to face, and that's a skill children need to learn
And reading body language and expressions, that is
because you can't
actually
do
a
that on a
skill.
phone. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
can't even really do it over. You can do a little bit over like how we're doing this today, but
Yeah.
you still don't see the whole person.
Yes. And yeah, the whole body language thing, that's a
Yeah,
disappearing art, and we need to bring that back.
yes, Yeah, well,
Mhm.
moving on, and this sort of brings us
Yeah,
in from our children into designing workplace culture.
yeah.
Now, when we were talking earlier, Michael, you mentioned you sit in your car for 5 minutes before heading into your childcare service. Can you share something about that with us?
Right. For me, it's an important thing. What I do normally before I go into any of our services or just any meetings in general, I think about four practices. It's under what we call a fish philosophy. It's something that happened in America, but we're not going through that. But the four things that I normally think about is one is I need to be there. I need to be there for the person. What that means is if you're talking to me, I'm absorbing what you're saying instead of in my head formulating, okay, this is how I'm going to respond. Because if you do that, you're not being there because you're already preparing your answer. Next is I should be prepared to play. So we are educating children. So when I go into a service, I need to be open enough to actually enjoy and play with my staff and the children. And the third thing is make their day. Now, this is very important. When you see our work environment, we're open enough to play pranks, appropriate pranks to each other. Because that makes you don't know sometimes if people are having a bad day, but if you do something special for them, that is enough to give them that extra push to go with their day. And lastly, this is what I do before I go out of the car and before I enter the door is I choose my attitude. Am I going to be a happy person today or not? Yes, in lives we get hit with a lot of problems in that, but it is, you can agree or disagree with me. It is actually your choice to manage your feelings. No one can put you in, a bad spot. What do they do? Do they lift you up and put you in there? But you always have a choice to walk away from it. And that's what I do. So all of the negative things, I don't want bringing that to the team because if I affect them negatively in that morning, even by not greeting or smiling at them, guess what? By night time, they're still not over it. They'll still be upset. So yeah. So those four things I always think about before I go into and meet my staff. So inside the center and meet my staff.
And you just mentioned that your attitude when you walk in makes an impact on your staff, and that
That's
may
correct.
be that you're not necessarily upset with them. It's just what's happened in your day, in your morning or your afternoon prior, that's affecting your attitude. And so
That is
you're
right.
suggesting that then impacts your staff and probably then onto the children, right?
Yes, for example, children is a different thing because they will know before you even know that you've impacted them. Children can pick on it. So be careful with your attitude with the children because if something happened on you, with you in, the time before, an hour before, whatnot, and you take that with you in the children's room, they know. How many times would you have a children ask you, "Oh, are you okay?" Or sometimes when I'm sitting down, they pat your back. "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Okay." And then you realize, I might be, I might look upset or something. So it is when you visit your staff or your workplace when you set your culture, they as a manager, they look up to you. So if your attitude is not aligned properly, guess what? Theirs will be too. So a grumpy manager equals grumpy staff, and that's a fact.
Wow. Well, look, going through that, then, what would you describe as an aspirational workplace culture?
Um, in my books, there's only four things I look for. One is open communication. So with my team, if they make a mistake, they say, "Oh, Michael, I made a mistake, and this is what I've done." Fine, okay, we'll fix it together. We don't. That's what we promote. We promote ownership and open communication with each other, or we're open enough to say, "Hey, Michael, I think you have a bit of your lunch in your teeth." So we're open like that because you don't want to be walking around. and knowing that you had, spinach for lunch.
Hopefully.
So we're like that. We're very, and it's not an offense in our workplace culture.
Yeah.
Respectful, obviously, that's a generic, and everyone needs to be present and in the moment. So if you're here to do a task, you're there. And my biggest requirement of all is you're prepared to have fun. You're looking after children. If you're not willing to have fun with them, then this might not be the place for you. But yeah,
Wow, that's a big step forward for some people because they think that they need that they're not to have fun because it's a job or a workplace.
yes.
Yeah. And that's what you're saying that they can do. They can go there and have fun.
Yes, I used to work for another company where it's very, how would you say, corporate, because it's a big, respectful corporate company. But I told them, well, we look after children. If we're going to be like that, then what's the point? So that the culture of that company changed. And you know what? Even though the families and parents of these children work in a corporate suit and tie world, when they're there in the center, they're themselves. They're having fun themselves as well. So it is a family center, but you can be who you are in here. That's what it's all about.
And the lead on from that, I suppose, is the children see you being yourself.
Yes. And they will be themselves as well.
And that's all about then acceptance and all of that that goes on that makes it okay to be you.
Yeah, for example, this morning, I've got a drop off early in the morning. That little child was crying like you wouldn't believe because it's Friday. He doesn't cry Monday to Thursday, but only on a Friday. And I don't know how he figures out it's a Friday. Anyway, he's crying out full on. If we were in a different center, you would see a lot of educators say, "Oh no, we'll take you inside," or because out of outside, out of mind. But our philosophy here is different. We actually engage the child to say goodbye to the parents outside, see their parents leave, and then I actually talked to the child and said, "Look, it's okay to be sad because I get sad too." And then he goes, "What makes you sad?" And the conversation changed. I said, when I was young, I got sad too because my mom left me in preschool. But then I found out she comes back in the afternoon. So I made something for her, you know, to give to her to make her excited. And I said, I also found out that when my mom leaves and I'm sad, she's sad as well. So the conversation changed. And then it's a realization now for the child that, okay, I'm sad, but my mom gets sad too. So we took photos of the children this morning that they're happy, and then we made sure that the mom and dads have seen it. So that changes a lot, and that builds again resilience.
It does. It does. Absolutely. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Just those simple maneuvers that can
Yes,
change the way a child reacts.
yeah, and you
But
just
also,
explain to them, yeah,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also, though, the education that you're giving your staff about how to deal with situations, the lesson they're learning as well about how each child can be different and what you can do to change that focus.
yeah.
And
One, yeah.
I say, look, and how would you design or work towards achieving that culture? Where would you start at?
Where will it? Okay, that's a very difficult question, but my answer is you start with yourself. I've always tell my staff, my educators, you can't tell the children to sit down while eating if they see you standing up and eating. Because in all of my centers, I encourage my educators, if they can, to eat with the children during lunchtime and have lovely conversations with them. So I said, if you're walking around and then you tell eating and you tell them to do that, then you've lost your right to do that. So I always make sure that I start with myself first. So if I tell them that they need to enjoy, they need to be fun, I have to be doing it myself first because I can't expect them to do the same. So having said that, role modeling is a very used word in the industry, but what does it look like? You actually have to do it and believe in it. Because if you role model something but you don't believe in it, it shows. You will not be consistent. So every time, we need to do something that's children in the room, I help out in there, model to them, and then explain to them the rationale behind it. Once they get it, it's all like a breeze. So every new staff educator that join us, that's what we always say. So these are our expectations. We have to be clear with that. And then once you've said that, you actually have to live it. Because if you don't live it, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. And anyone coming in can see that it's not real as well.
Yes. And the thing as well, I know this might sound harsh. If a staff or an educator is not cutting it, if sometimes you get someone that you think, oh, this would destroy the culture that we've set, we let them know, and we're honest enough to say, at some point, look, this might not be a fit for you, because this is what we're not trying, but this is what we're going to achieve. Unfortunately, the practices and that we support them, but if they're not, sort of getting it or cutting it, we let them
Yeah.
go.
So you've got to have that alignment.
Yes. And
Yeah.
you know what? There is staff shortage, but the main priority are the children and the quality. So sometimes you have to make that hard decision to let them go.
Yeah, and that's an extremely hard decision in this climate.
Yeah. Yes. Talk to me 3 years ago, we won't have this problem. you know, you don't even
Absolutely.
you don't even have to advertise 3 years ago, but now you have to advertise like crazy. So yeah.
Because it's a it's a total change, but certainly with that staff shortage, having that aspirational workplace culture would then promote staff retention.
That's correct. Happy staff, you don't have a problem. And everything falls into place. If they're happy in the workplace, they're positive, children pick that energy up, and then families pick that energy up. So it's a win-win situation if you do it like that. Yeah.
Can I ask you, say a staff member has an issue of some sort, something isn't getting them in the right frame of mind when they come into the workplace, what do you suggest, or what would your role be in that?
First of all, as a manager, the first thing that you need to do is remind yourself that we're all humans, because our heads are full of compliance and tick the boxes and all of that. If something's off, rule number one, be a human first and be a person and talk to that staff. I've taken a handful of staff in one of the centers out for a coffee just to give them a break and actually get to know them. If your staff sees their manager involved in making their well-being good, the more open they will be. I'm not my staff meetings, when if you have a chance to attended one, it's not about, hey, you didn't, Paula, you did not do this, you forgot. It's not all about that. That can be done the instant it happens. I can tell you, if you forgot to say pack away the toys, I can tell you right there and then. Why would I bring that up in the staff meeting? That's pointless. Staff meeting is about discussing, okay, we need to work on our communication more. What are our strategies? When they Staff meetings are often done after hours, they're already tired and cranky, they just want to go home. As a reward, you want your staff meeting that when the staff leaves, they have take home value and it's positive. So it should always be like that. So the negatives in the staff meeting, like things they forgot to do, that can be done in a memo, seriously, or it can be done on
Yeah,
a day. So staff meeting is more about acknowledging what they've done best as well. How many staff meetings have you been to where the facilitator hasn't thanked the efforts of the staff? So yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And that's even that little acknowledgement makes a big difference.
yes, it does. And like I said, we're all human, and we need to have that. It drives them further. My educators know that if just they're doing what they're supposed to do in their job description, I don't give them a pat in the back. But if they do something above and beyond, you'll get everything. And that's how it should be, because it gives you the drive to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned earlier about your staff meetings and being able to, talk to your staff about the positive things and saying, it's professional development, really, is
Yeah,
what you're talking
it
about.
is. That's correct.
And in that, I would suggest having good systems and processes in place to gather that data
That's correct.
and that evidence so that when you go to the meeting, you know what you're talking about.
That's correct. So the
So,
first thing I do is ask the children and the families. That's my information and gathering tool, because I don't know if people see this. Our main customers in the sector are the children. The parents just pay the bill. The main customers are the children. So the first people I ask to determine if they're happy or not, guess what? It's the children. And then after that, I ask the people or the person that pays for the bill. That's how it works.
can I ask you, how do you ask the children? Do you have any techniques around asking children? Is there a special child survey that you might do? Is there, getting down on your hands and knees and talking to them? What's your special
Technique. Yeah.
technique?
So if they are ages 3 years above, and very verbal in that, I sit down with them. Simple questions. What do you like? Why do you come here? What do you like about coming here? What are the things that you like? When there are no educators around me, or if they're far away, I ask, so which teacher do you like? And I ask them why. And probably that person will become, educator of the month or things like that. When it comes to the younger children, I observe my educators when they do group time. So the educator that does group time and maintains the attention of the children, that's a win for me. And then those that doesn't, really want to do group time and that, then I focus on them and sort of support them, because after all, I can't expect my staff to perform very well without giving them the tools. So sometimes I do ask them, oh, do you need help with something? Do we need do you need support on how to do it? Or yeah, we don't, like, I don't sing, but if I sing in front of the children, it doesn't matter, because even if I'm out of tune, the children like it. Things like that build up their confidence. So yeah.
And you mentioned Educator of the Month. Is that something that you do at your services? Is have that a reward
Yes,
system for the educators?
all of my services, with my directors, I tell them not to forget educator of the month. It's very important. If, for example, for some reason you miss it, then I said on the second month you get two. Just don't miss it.
Yes.
Another thing that we do is team building activities. It can be anything. I think the most popular one now is that paint and sip. Sometimes they just want to have a lovely lunch. One of my service, I'm not sure if you heard of Palette Play. So that's the team building that they choose. So there's this a company called Palette Play. They bring in the pallets, and they take it apart, and they build furniture for children themselves. They teach them how to use power tools,
Wow.
and it's amazing. They built cubby house, all of these activity stuff for the children. They're big, and they're massive, and they're really good. So they teach, at the I think the first hour, they taught the educators how to use power tools, how to hammer properly, and things like that.
That's a life
Eh,
skill.
yeah, and they do it, and it's amazing, because they know that these play structures were made by them, and the children know, and it builds that relationship. So when it comes to team building, my directors are good enough to check in with me, and it depends on what particular skill that we want our team to be, to focus on, that to be built.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's a
Yeah,
palette play. We'll
yeah,
include that in the link for our audience later,
yes, yeah, it's
Michael.
pretty good. Yeah,
I've never heard of it, but how exciting to make your own play furniture that's relative to your service.
yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, that's very good. Now, what do you see as the next biggest?
Oh,
challenge for the sector over sort of next 2 to 5 years?
okay. It's a bit, I'll be upfront. I think it's a bit scary. I'm a member of one of the biggest early years group in social media, and sometimes I participate, sometimes I don't. But the reason why I'm in that group is just to monitor what the sector is doing. One common thing that I've been seeing in the last maybe a couple of years now, a year and a half at least, a lot of our educators are burning out. So they're not having fun anymore. And quite a few of them actually changed jobs. I think it's all because we do have shortages in that. But the workplace culture is not given much importance. When we update the early years learning framework and all of that, we got dumped with all of this compliance stuff. But we're not also looking at what is the workplace culture? How can we achieve this with the current culture that we have? So it didn't look very good. And because the workplace culture is a bit random, the quality of our educators it's very hard to really pinpoint on what it is. It's very random. So looking at 2 to 5 years, I am hoping that a lot of operators like us would focus on and that's our job as managers, to focus on workplace culture and then focus more on our educators. Yes, we have paperwork to do, fine, but you know what? We'll do it together. And that's what we do here. We'll do it together. Oh, I don't know this, or I don't know it either. We'll find the answer together. How can we achieve this? You know what, Michael? Having all of that achieved in a month, it's not reasonable. Okay, so what can we do? What's realistic? And that prevents burnout because you work on what's realistic. So when we sit down together and say, oh, we have to do this, adapt to the new changes, none of us have experience on this. Maybe we need to get someone from outside. So be open enough to ask for help. And that's what we do.
And that's probably part of that aspirational culture that we've been speaking about. Is that ability as the owner or provider, manager, to say, hey, look, we need someone to come in and guide us through this.
That's correct. Yeah,
Because there is a lot of changes. There's always, a new regulation or change to regulations, like you said, the early learning framework, and the amount and the workload that our educators do anyway in the centre to add
that's
that
correct.
change on top of it and expecting them to know it by sort of next week is
Yes,
unrealistic.
that is correct. And I think as approved providers as well, one of the things that we need to understand is there's a lot of providers out there. I mean, professional development companies out there. Our job is to pick the one that aligns with our culture and philosophy. Um, I'm not whenever I select professional development companies, I ask them, so how do you deliver it? And send me a sample of your syllabus. I'll have a look at it. If it doesn't align with ours, we don't choose them. That's very important. You don't just go say, oh, this one's popular, or this one's cheaper. We'll just go get them you know or sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes there are companies that charge phenomenal amount and then compare it with one that's reasonable. It depends on the delivery of it. So it's very important to do that. They need to understand, as a manager, you need to understand the baseline of the learning capabilities of your educators. Find the baseline and find a professional development provider that aligns with that baseline.
That's a very good tip actually, because like you said, there's a lot of consultants and professional
Yes.
development colleges and everyone out there. It's picking the one that suits you.
That's correct. That's very important. And one that will not affect the culture that you work hard in setting.
And bringing it back to the next 5 years, this is where the professional development and consultants can really come into their own, helping the
That's
sector
right.
with not only workplace culture, but all of the changes that our staff need to be across as well.
That is correct. So it's very important for the professional development provider to consider to have a custom. I think it's also changing because I find now that every time I book someone or a company or an individual, they tend to already ask you what to focus on. So I think it's changing. Before they don't do that. You get a package, and that's what it is for the next for the next hour or two. That's what it is. But now a lot of them are saying, what do you want us to focus on? Which I think has changed the way the professional development industry is handling trainings as well.
Yes, you can see the changes. You can see it slowly, and I think from all of this, what we want to achieve as a sector is the valuable part educators play. That they are
That's correct.
valued, that they are equal.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, a lot of educators out there don't feel that they're valued only because of what has happened to the world in
Yes,
general.
yes.
Um, and this is why our role is important to re-establish that workplace culture. It's not an easy job, but someone's got to do it.
That's right. And it's effectively even saying thank you, isn't it?
Yes, thank you, or sometimes just giving them a lolly would do. Yeah, that true.
It
Or an
does.
ice block on a
Absolutely.
hot day. So if they're out there playing, sometimes I just told the chef the other day to buy a bag of ice blocks, and then I'll go out and give one ice block each to the educators because it's hot out there. So, and they're fine with it. Yeah, that makes the day. That's a part of the practice that I normally do. I make sure that within the day I do four of those. Be there, play, make the day, and I've already chosen my attitude.
And that's all started from our initial question about your 5 minutes in the car.
Yes, that's correct.
And that impact, then, what you have just gone through is effectively those 5 minutes put into practice.
Yeah. And I also deliver that philosophy to my team. I get them to dress up. I hold up that night and then tell them, okay, I don't tell them really what we're going to do. It's a surprise sort of thing. But I love dress up, so I get them to dress up in little teams and then do a training. I share with them what those four practices are. And I always tell them it's your choice. But if you do, there's four basic things. They're not hard. Be there, play, make the day, and choose your act. They're not hard. I said, you will be a lot happier and work doesn't feel like work.
And that's the key. Work not feeling
Yeah,
like work.
that's the key.
Now, look, thank you so much, Michael, for your time today. And before
That's all
we
right, Paula.
finish up, I'd love to share uh, one of your personal mottos or wise words with our audience. Do
Yep.
you have anything that you'd like to
Yeah,
impart?
I do have one. My personal motto is only dead fish go with the flow.
Very clever.
Yeah, only dead fish go with the flow. So in life, you always have to be on the go because if you're not, then you're just like everyone else going on the burnout road. Go against it if you're burning out.
Go against the current.
That's correct.
Wow, that's actually. Do you know what's amazing in these podcasts we're doing? No one has said the same thing. It's quite amazing. So, and it's just so lovely to hear different mottos and ways. For me, learning from these podcasts is even walking away with all of those wise words personally. So, no, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today, Michael. And
Oh, good.
what we'll do is share all your links, share all your information with our audience when we put the podcast out. What I'm going to do is hit stop.
Yeah,